here's the overflow dam for the salt marsh. And sometimes nature isn't pretty, and this is one of those times. You can see some dead carp there, and that's just a tiny bit of what's going on. It's really low here. I've seen it a lot lower, and I've seen it completely full. But if you look out over there, there's hundreds of dead fish, mostly carp.
It is the agenda for the 21st century you're living in today. For a brave new world where everything that you cherished and held true will no longer exist.
Scientists warn that a large part of Antarctica is melting and cannot be stopped.
A cholera outbreak in Yemen is spreading rapidly, adding to the already grim humanitarian situation in the country. Although many cases can be treated by rehydration, 18 months of war has left the country with few functioning medical facilities and clean water supplies.
Our latest figures I got this morning is that the number of cases is increasing. And that there are, as of 27th of October, 1,410 suspected cholera cases in 10 out of Yemen's 23 governorates.
On top of the outbreak, the UN estimates 370,000 children are at risk of acute malnutrition, which requires urgent treatment. Drone footage shows the intensity of the recent earthquakes in Italy. Firefighters used the aerial footage to assess the extent of the damage in Camerino and Viso, near the epicenter of the tremors. They accompanied many residents to the stricken buildings to collect belongings in areas cordoned off for safety reasons, including some of their more precious articles. Viso parish priest Gilberto Spurio worries that the frayed nerves and fears over aftershocks will send people packing up and moving on permanently, leaving families divided.
When Islamic State militants retreated from Keyara near Mosul in August, they set fire to the oil wells. Since then, the smoke has hung over the northern Iraqi town, turning everything black, including the sheep. Efforts to put out the fires have failed, and Islamic State have continuously shelled the area.
The protest over an oil pipeline descending into chaos. Officers in riot gear spent 6 hours breaking this up.
Tension's been building over this pipeline for months, and yesterday the protesters made a literal line at the highway that runs next to this pipeline. They started burning cars and tires, and it was all on private property that was owned by the oil company. Authorities have warned over and over that they needed to get off the property or they'd be arrested, but that didn't stop hundreds, many with their faces covered, from making their stand Thursday. Some were shouting, "Hands up, don't shoot." Others threw fire bombs at officers, and it led to members of law enforcement responding in full riot gear. During the chaos, a local sheriff says that one woman fired 3 shots at the police. Thankfully, no one was hit.
After more than 9 years of construction, $4.7 billion in expenses, the Tennessee Valley Authority has just unveiled America's first new nuclear power plant for the 21st century. The Unit 2 reactor at the Watts Bar nuclear power plant is now operational, and the company claims the new plant will provide a carbon-free, reliable source of power for at least the next 40 years.
Let's get back to this news that we've been sharing with you out of Chicago's O'Hare Airport. You see that American Airlines 767 that caught fire.
China will showcase its latest domestic-built J-20 stealth fighter jet starting Tuesday. The fighter will appear at the 11th China International Aviation and Aerospace Exhibition, also known as the Zhuhai Air Show. This takes place in the coastal city of Zhuhai in South China's Guangdong province. The J-20 took its maiden flight in January 2011. China has since produced 10 prototypes. The spokesperson for the People's Liberation Army Air Force, Senior Colonel Shen Jinke, announced the details of the show on Friday. He said the J-20 is designed for aerial combat and boost the fighting capacity of the Chinese Air Force. The 6-day event is set to feature some of the best equipment the PLA and state-owned defense giants have to offer. Iraqi forces are continuing their push toward Mosul, the country's second-largest city and the last ISIL stronghold in the nation. Government troops are in an area less than 5 kilometers east of the city. The Iraqi Joint Operations Command says the coalition has eliminated 360 militants and liberated 36 villages this week. Meanwhile, Iraqi Shiite militias backed by Iran have decided to join the offensive on a new front west of Mosul. The move will block the retreat of jihadists into Syria. Backed by the US, 50,000 Iraqi soldiers, police and Kurdish Peshmerga fighters launched the offensive to recapture Mosul from the south, the north and the east 2 weeks ago.
The Iraqi capital, Baghdad, where at least 7 people have been killed and more than 20 others wounded in a suicide bombing. Officials say the bomber targeted an aid station set up for Shiite pilgrims in a western neighborhood on Saturday. No individual or group has claimed responsibility, but the Islamic State group has repeatedly preyed on the country's Shiite majority. Iraq is currently conducting a major offensive to drive ISIL out of Mosul, the militants' last stronghold in the country.
Syrian rebels say they're pushing forward with a huge offensive aimed at breaking a weeks-long government siege on eastern Aleppo. At least 15 civilians have been killed in heavy shelling and suicide car bomb attacks, among them a number of children, according to the UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. Over 100 people are said to have been injured since the operation began on Friday morning.
Russia is sending more warships to Syria for operations against extremist groups. The naval destroyer Smith-Livy has departed from the Crimean port of Sevastopol. The heavily armed ship is heading for the Greek port of Piraeus before it joins its battle group in Syria. The vessel took part in previous operations in Syria back in 2013 and 15. Meanwhile, a Russian naval fleet is also on its way to the Mediterranean Sea. The fleet includes the country's only aircraft carrier, Kuznetsov, a cruiser and several destroyers.
Red alert in a Soviet-style nuclear bunker, where a couple of Russians are racing to prevent a catastrophic strike on the United States.
Nuclear bombs will be launched in 1 hour.
The aim of the quest, the latest gaming craze in Moscow, is to find the nuclear launch codes, deactivate a hidden red button. It's already been pressed by a mad Russian general. Of course, it's complete fantasy, but amid the current tensions with Russia, it all feels a little unsettling.
Are you worried that something like this could happen in real life?
Actually, I'm not. No, I'm not thinking about it.
I'm worried because it's very stupid information for both sides. And I know that normal people in all over the world, they don't want any war.
Now I know that in school in Russia, they tell to the children the same. That our main enemy is the US, and it sounds ridiculous for me, and I'm totally sure that war is impossible.
But not all Russians agree. National television has been broadcasting a mass training exercise involving up to 40 million people across the country to prepare responses, says the government, for a chemical or nuclear attack. It's the biggest rehearsal of its kind since the collapse of the Soviet Union, and suggests the Kremlin at least wants Russians to take the threat of war very seriously. Of course, all-out conflict between Russia and the West remains highly unlikely. The principle of mutually assured destruction still holds, just like it did during the Cold War. But with tensions growing over Syria, Ukraine and the Baltic states, analysts say a small risk of contact, misunderstanding and escalation between the nuclear superpowers has become very real. And it's a risk the Kremlin seems keen to spotlight, releasing details of its latest intercontinental ballistic missile being added to its nuclear arsenal. The Satan II, as it's known, will be one of the world's most destructive weapons, guaranteeing Russia's place as a top nuclear power. State television has also upped its hardline rhetoric. In its flagship current affairs show, Russia's top state news anchor, dubbed by critics as the Kremlin's propaganda-in-chief, recently issued a stark warning of global war if, for instance, Russian and US forces clash in Syria. Brutish behaviour towards Russia, declared Dmitry Kiselov, could have nuclear dimensions.
Russia's ongoing military campaign in Syria might have just cost it a seat on the United Nations Human Rights Council. Moscow lost its bid for a second term on the council to Hungary and Croatia. Human rights activists say Russia's support for the Syrian regime should disqualify the country from sitting on the council. Syria's government has been accused of indiscriminately bombing civilians throughout the nearly 6-year conflict. Saudi Arabia did win a seat on the council despite facing similar outcry over its involvement in Yemen. But since it was running unopposed in its region, a Saudi seat on the council was virtually guaranteed.
I need to open with a very critical breaking news announcement. The FBI has just sent a letter to Congress informing them that they have discovered new emails pertaining to the former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's investigation and they are reopening the case into her criminal and illegal conduct that threatens the security of the United States of America.
FBI Director Jim Comey has sent a letter to members of Congress telling them that the FBI is taking a look at another set of emails that it hadn't previously taken a look at while it was doing its investigation. As you remember, back in July, the director of the FBI announced that they were recommending no charges be brought against Hillary Clinton in that investigation of her use of a private server while she was Secretary of State during her tenure as Secretary of State. This letter that Comey has now sent to members of Congress says that new emails have now come to the attention of the investigative team. This is a team of investigators in the Counterintelligence Division at the headquarters of the FBI, and they're now going to take a look at these emails. Now,
Secretary Clinton, any reaction to the FBI investigation? Have you been in touch with the FBI? Secretary Clinton, any reaction to the FBI reopening the investigation?
Great. Good afternoon. I'd like to say a few words and then take your questions. I have now seen Director Comey's letter to Congress. We are 11 days out from perhaps the most important national election of our lifetimes. Voting is already underway in our country. So the American people deserve to get the full and complete facts immediately.
Job-killing Obamacare is just one more way the system is rigged. But with what I've just announced previously, it might not be as rigged as I thought. Right? Right?
Yeah. So it's interesting. They suggest that you didn't have access to the Clintons, and we just put up a whole bunch of pictures where you're standing right next to them.
Yes, that's exactly right. And in some cases, I would say, I don't know David Brock, but I would say he was spilling out anything he could to make me look bad, to try to, here's the thing, everybody knows that Hillary Clinton can't run on her record. So anybody that comes out and says anything truthful about him, they have to hammer him. And it's just, I realize it's part of the process, but I'm not part of that system, and I want to try to restore my reputation and my good word in the book.
Well, so you got hammered, but you also got ignored. I mean, if one of Trump's security detail wrote a book about covering Trump, I think that would be on Good Morning America every day for a week. Most media outlets just acted like your book never came out. So for our viewers who aren't familiar with the book, tell us what they would learn if they read it.
So you're looking at the first employee in the history of the Secret Service who ever had to be compelled to testify against a sitting president in a criminal law case. I was subpoenaed 6 times in the Monica Lewinsky case. And you're right, Tucker, if this book, if what I saw was about a Republican, they'd be carving my face in the side of Mount Rushmore. But because it's about a liberal, the mainstream media comes out, they either ignore me or they rip me apart. Now every mainstream media TV show had somebody on there to tear me apart and call me a liar, but they wouldn't give me the 10 minutes like you kind people did, to explain myself and to tell the truth.
Well, Gary, what is the truth about Hillary Clinton? We're very close to the family, clearly. What do the voters need to know about her?
What they need to know is that she's cold, she's distant, she's angry. The real Hillary Clinton is the woman you saw during the Benghazi hearings that yelled, what difference does it make at this point? The real Hillary Clinton is the person who refused to pick up the phone and let a handful of men fight and women fight for 13 hours with a couple $100,000 worth of small arms when there were hundreds of millions of dollars of equipment and men and women around ready to rescue them, and she didn't make the call. That's the real Hillary Clinton. It's the real Hillary Clinton that defended her husband's affairs and the alleged assaults and slut-shame those women. That's the real Hillary Clinton.